Laying down ceramic tiles, each 4x4 inches, in a 10x12 kitchen was no small feat. Ethan Harrington carefully spread adhesive on each tile and meticulously aligned it with the previous one. He felt a sense of accomplishment, knowing that even the slightest misalignment could compromise the entire project. At Rivers Renovation and Modeling, where 100% satisfaction was the standard, Ethan made sure every tile was perfectly placed before moving on. Just as he was finishing a row, his wife Sophie called Rivers on his behalf. Ethan picked up the call, ready to start the next row of tiles. The warm greetings from Sophie were a thing of the past. Now her questions were short and impatient. She asked how much longer he would take. Ethan estimated about 3 more hours in Braden's kitchen. Sophie hung up abruptly, leaving him feeling the pressure to hurry. Despite wanting to finish quickly, Ethan made himself work with careful precision. As he worked, memories of his wife of over 20 years floated through his mind. He first met Sophie at Rivers Renovation and Remodeling during his early days on the job. She walked into Rivers' office, apologizing for her poor performance at Benjamin Sterling High School. Ethan noticed her stout build and long, wavy hair, but quickly refocused on his tools. Rivers sharply reminded him that Sophie was his daughter. "Yes, sir," Ethan replied, resisting a shrug. Noticing her father's reluctance, Sophie began to flirt and smile at Ethan whenever they crossed paths. He remained polite but didn't encourage her. "You understand, right?" Benjamin warned. "I don't want you chasing after my daughter." "I'm not pursuing your daughter," Ethan assured him. In truth, 21-year-old Ethan found 17-year-old Sophie a nuisance. She was overweight, had severe acne, and her immaturity was a turnoff. "Hey, Ethan," Sophie said one day, coyly, while he and another employee unloaded equipment. "Uh-huh," Ethan responded, struggling with a bag of quick-drying cement. "I turned 18 on Saturday," she said, leaning forward, giving him a clear view down her blouse. "That looks nice," Ethan said. "Happy birthday," another coworker added. "So, Ethan, what's my birthday present?" Sophie teased. "Close your eyes," Ethan instructed, dragging his bag to the truck's rear door. "Sure thing," Sophie giggled. "What do you see?" Ethan asked as he tossed the bag into the vehicle. Nothing," she replied. "That's your gift. Happy birthday," he said, dragging the bag towards the barn. Evelyn Rivers insisted that Benjamin invite Ethan to their home for Sophie's birthday. Ethan bought a nice card from a medical store and a silver bracelet from a pawn shop. Evelyn then pushed Benjamin to ask Ethan to take Sophie to the prom. Despite cringing at her tight, sleeveless dress, Ethan dutifully escorted her, posed for photos, danced, and kissed her goodnight. Days later, Ben scolded Ethan for not calling Sophie, which broke her heart. Reluctantly, Ethan asked her out again, leading to more dates. On the 5th date, Sophie gave Ethan her virginity. Vivian Harrington was born 5 months after their wedding. For the next decade, Ethan endured the most undesirable tasks at Rivers Renovations and Remodeling. He believed Rivers deliberately secured tough jobs just to burden him. Throughout their first 16 years of marriage, Sophie tried to be a good wife, learning his likes and dislikes, cooking his favorite meals, and keeping quiet during Denver Broncos games. She made efforts to lose weight with limited success, and though her skin improved, acne scars remained visible. When Vivian started attending Holden Whitmore Elementary School, Sophie got a job at the Prestonvale Public Library. Despite its modest pay, the comprehensive health and dental benefits were valuable. Shortly after their 16th wedding anniversary, Sophie's cousin Elena moved to Dolan, Utah with her latest husband. Elena's loud, crude nature influenced Sophie negatively. She became brash, complained constantly, and neglected household duties, including cooking. Ethan, proficient in cooking and cleaning, didn't mind taking on more work. But what started as occasional neglect turned into a nightly routine. Sophie, Elena, and Logan often found activities outside the Harrington house, leaving Ethan to manage everything. Meanwhile, Vivian learned to do household chores and sew buttons on her uniform, resenting her father for her mother's neglect instead of blaming Sophie. Ethan's timing was nearly perfect. 3 hours after Sophie's call, he finished the threshold installation. Struggling with stiffness in his back, Ethan reflected on his age while gathering tools and remaining tiles from the Braden house. When he contacted Rivers, Ethan winced at the man's slurred speech, a result of a near-fatal blow that left him recovering slowly. Ben had a massive stroke not long after his wife Evelyn revealed she had breast cancer. Despite undergoing a double mastectomy and radiation therapy, Evelyn was still saddled with the responsibility of caring for Ben, with some help from their sons Lucas and Adrian, and Ethan stepping in when needed. Sophie, their only daughter, was her mother's constant companion, driving her to Fairway Hospital and comforting her during her painful moments. Even after Evelyn passed away, Ben seemed determined to hang on to life. Each day, someone would wheel him into the office where he would curse his useless left hand while struggling to type on his computer. Later, Spencer, Lucas, or Adrian would drive Ben home. Over the phone, Ethan informed Ben that he was done with Braden's job. Ben's response was a series of grunts, barks, and wheezes. Back at home, Ethan enjoyed the scent of his favorite meal, pork chops, mashed potatoes, and French-cut green beans. After Ben's debilitating stroke, Sophie put the Harrington family on a heart-healthy diet. Despite losing 40 pounds, Sophie was still overweight. Ethan accused Vivian of choosing Gideon Huxley University just to avoid Sophie's bland cooking, a claim Vivian didn't deny. While Sophie was busy at the stove, Ethan tried to lean in for a kiss, but she waved him away, pinching her nose. He threw his clothes into the hamper and washed the sweat from his tired body. This job was tough enough when he was 21, and at 45, it was pushing him to his limits and harming his health. Yet Spencer, Lucas, and Adrian didn't seem to care about his struggles. They insisted they couldn't afford to hire help due to the mounting medical bills from Ben's rehabilitation. After drying off, Ethan ignored the reflection of his fit self in the foggy mirror. Wearing a t-shirt and shorts, he headed downstairs just as Sophie was setting dessert on his plate. "We've got hot apple pie," she announced, placing a frosted mug and a can of beer in front of him. "Oh my God," Ethan thought, feeling bile rise in his throat. He remembered the last time Sophie had served him frosted beer, back on her 37th birthday months before their 17th anniversary. With Vivian out with friends, Sophie poured Ethan a beer in a frosted mug. He savored the cold drink until Sophie interrupted him, saying, "Darling, there's something I need to talk to you about." Ethan stayed silent as Sophie rambled about nothing in particular. Eventually, he urged her to get to the point as his beer was almost finished. Sophie then revealed that Elena and Logan had an open marriage. She asked Ethan if he had ever thought about being unfaithful. "Of course I'm a man," Ethan admitted. "I've been eyeing that girl Shelley at the gas station." "Ha! Shelley from the gas station? Like you'd ever have a chance," Sophie retorted. "But I'm married," Ethan added. "Sure, I look and think about it, but that's where it ends. Did you think I'd take it further? Did you believe you could act without facing consequences?" Sophie pressed on. "I can't," Ethan stated firmly. "We're married. We made vows before our family and friends." Finishing his drink, Ethan cleaned his mug and said, "We pledge to be faithful and forsake all others, including Shelley from the gas station." "We could renew our vows," Sophie proposed. "No new vows," Ethan replied, putting the clean mug back in the cabinet. "Our original vows suffice. While Elena and Logan might have an open marriage, we don't and never will." "But," Sophie began. "No buts. End of discussion," Ethan cut in, leaving the kitchen. He hoped that was the end of it. However, Sophie brought up the topic twice more, each time met with Ethan's firm refusal. "But honey," Sophie persisted, "it's a testament to our love. We trust each other enough for this." "Do you even hear the nonsense you're saying?" Ethan snapped. "If you think I should let you cheat to prove my love, maybe I don't love you." Frustrated when Sophie mentioned an open marriage for the fourth time, Ethan called her father. Sophie watched the phone ring. "Hello, Ben. How are you?" Ethan greeted. Sophie's face went pale when she realized Ethan was talking to her father. Her discomfort grew when Ethan asked for Evelyn. "Sophie has something to share with you," Ethan conveyed. "Sophie, tell your dad about what Elena told you." Reluctantly, Sophie took the phone from Ethan. As she tried to stand from the table, Ethan firmly restrained her. Feeling cornered, Sophie rambled incoherently before finally ending the call. "You despicable man," she snapped at Ethan. "Listen, Sophie," Ethan warned. "Mention this open marriage idea again, and our marriage will end. We'll get divorced." Sophie never raised the topic again, and Ethan was relieved. He noticed Elena and Logan, whom he had dubbed the toxic twins, visited less frequently. Fast forward a few years. Ethan watched Sophie pour his beer, nearly overflowing with foam. She wasn't very skilled at it. "I'll be 40 next Tuesday," Sophie began as Ethan tasted his pork chop. Yes, he acknowledged, swallowing. During all this time, I've only been with one man, Sophie emphasized. Luckily for you, Ethan quipped. You've been with what, at least 10 women? Sophie queried. Is that fair? Life's a tricky game, I said, taking a long sip of my beer. Considering my upcoming birthday and everything I've done for you, Vivian, and my folks, I think I deserve a bit of freedom. Elena and I are heading to Las Vegas next week. She found a sweet deal at a casino, Sophie announced. I kept eating, but my stomach was starting to churn. While we're there, we might meet some guys, just for a date, nothing serious. It might even make me appreciate you more, she added, almost as if she was daring me to react. The sauce is almost perfect, I commented, trying to keep my cool. What's your take on it? She asked, ignoring the obvious tension. I've told you, it's nearly spot on, I responded, my mind racing. This isn't about the sauce. It's about me branching out and gaining new experiences, she shot back. So you're saying I'm being unfaithful? I questioned, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief. I've made up my mind, Sophie declared. You can either support me or we can get a divorce. Your choice. I'll start the divorce process, I replied calmly. Hold on, divorces cost a lot. We can't just dismiss that, Sophie said, looking taken aback. What's there to discuss? You've clearly made your decision. You and your sketchy cousin are off to Vegas. You're not asking. You've already decided. Forget about our massive bills here. You're off for your big 4-0 bash. And maybe even a date, despite being married. You think that's okay? I either support this madness or face divorce, I said, pushing my empty plate away. It's just for 1 week, Sophie defended, as if that made a difference. A week, a day, a minute. It doesn't change a thing, I responded, cutting a piece of pie. Cheating is cheating, and I won't stay married to a cheater. Maybe you can ask Elena. Absolutely not, I laughed bitterly. Sophie, I wouldn't be with Elena if she were the last woman on earth. I tasted the pie and frowned. Oh great, you used that aspartame crap, didn't you? Pushing my plate away, I stood up, wiped my mouth, and walked out of the kitchen. I'm seeing a lawyer tomorrow to start the divorce, I declared, heading upstairs. Braden's job was done, and Spencer wasn't planning anything until he got the green light to rebuild the federal savings and loan. But Ethan, you never listen, Sophie called after me. Sure, I yelled back. You never heard me. I told you what would happen if you brought this up again. We're getting divorced. In our makeshift office, I powered up the old computer. It was slow, but it worked and had internet access. After searching for lawyers, I found Lila Everhart's online form and filled it out. Shortly after, I got a call confirming an appointment with her the next morning at 10. After cleaning up the kitchen, Sophie came upstairs, undressed, and got into bed. When she pressed against me, I pulled away. No thanks, I said, turning away. Good night. I woke up at 5:30 as usual. Even without work, I kept my routine. Quietly, I left the bed and closed our bedroom door softly. Down in the kitchen, I brewed coffee and checked my email on my phone. There was a detailed email from Lila Everhart's office about what I should bring to the meeting. I considered a second cup of coffee, but decided against it when I heard Sophie moving around upstairs. If she wanted coffee, she could make it herself. No, I told him to give it to me. I heard Sophie's voice from her cell phone as she came downstairs. Seeing me reading the news on my phone, she shrieked and ended her call. Ethan, what are you doing here? She asked, clearly startled. I mentioned that Spencer hasn't gotten approval to start rebuilding the federal savings and loan, so I'm free today, I replied. The grass is too damp to mow, so I caught up on the news. Did you hear Montgomery and Montgomery is considering a second location? You could have saved me some coffee, she grumbled. You can ask Elena to make you some, I replied, placing my cup in the sink. Lila Everhart, a striking brunette who wore glasses that seemed more for show than necessity, examined our financial documents. You recently refinanced at 9%, she noted. My daughter's in her final year of school, I explained. Plus, my in-laws had huge medical bills. Their deductibles were sky high, then there were funeral costs, and Rivers was nearly bankrupt. A few projects went over budget because Adrian messed up the timing. Yes, Lila nodded, reading further. So, Mr. Harrington, how will divorcing your employer's daughter impact your job? I plan to end that relationship, I said, a slight smile forming. But Mrs. Harrington's position at the Preston Vale Public Library shouldn't be affected. By Friday, Spencer still hadn't received the go-ahead for the federal savings and loan renovations. I was at home finishing up some renovations when Sophie called. "What's this? What kind of scam?" she yelled as I picked up. "Oh, you got the documents," I remarked. "What's the issue with the first-floor bathroom? You said something needs fixing, but I can't figure out the problem," I asked. "The lock is sticking," Sophie replied. "We'll need to discuss this when I get home." "No, we've already talked about this. Talking hasn't helped, especially when you seem to listen more to Elena than your own husband. So I'm done talking," I said firmly. "All right, I see what's going on. Got it. Goodbye." "But I don't want a divorce," Sophie lamented. "And I don't want to be married to someone unfaithful," I shot back. "Anything else?" "No, goodbye then," I ended the call. When Ben's number flashed on the screen, I put down my screwdriver and answered. "Hello," I greeted. Ben erupted with a mix of frustrated sounds and curses. I was taken aback by the range of swear words as my father-in-law pressed for details about Sophie and me. "It's pretty simple, sir," I began. "Elena and her husband have an open marriage, and they convinced Sophie to consider it too." "I made it clear that I have no interest in an open marriage," I said, interrupting Ben's emotional outburst. "Your daughter gave me an ultimatum last night, accept it or divorce. So, I chose divorce." Ben tried to argue, even resorting to emotional manipulation. "Sir, I appreciate your concern," I lied, "but this is an issue for your 3 sons and daughter to handle, not me. Besides, why would I want a business that's been losing money for 3 years?" I muttered to myself. Sophie returned home with reinforcements. I anticipated this and stayed silent as Elena and Logan voiced their perspectives. "You see, Ethan, since we're secure in our marriage," Logan smirked, "Elena can have friendships outside of it." "Exactly," Elena added. "We share everything, no secrets. It's brought us closer." "Well, that certainly brings clarity," I remarked. Sophie, Elena, and Logan smiled, thinking they had convinced me. "Actually," I corrected, standing up. "After our divorce, Sophie, you can share your life with whomever you choose." "Oh, what's this?" Logan smirked. "Just because you feel inadequate, Sophie should suppress her talents and desires?" I flashed a grin, revealing all my teeth, and strolled to the living room exit, facing the stairs. "If believing that makes you feel better, go right ahead," I said, leaving the room. That night, Sophie tried to initiate intimacy. "Rest up, Sophie. You've got a busy day ahead, don't you?" I said with a grin. As was my routine, I woke at 5:30 and left the bed, no longer caring if my movements disturbed Sophie. I descended the stairs, brewed coffee, and sipped it while perusing the news on my phone. I found myself scoffing at the national headlines. "These politicians really should live by their own standards," I muttered. "Lifetime perks? Forget it. Try living on Social Security. Private health care? Nope. Here's the same insurance they've mandated for everyone else." At 11, Logan knocked on the door. I answered, and he tried to enter, but I stopped him with a firm hand. "What's up?" I asked. "I'm here to pick up Sophie for the airport," Logan explained, attempting to enter again. "I'll inform her you're here," I said, nudging Logan back and shutting the door. I returned to my recorded sitcom. Shortly after, Sophie descended the stairs with her suitcase. "Why didn't you tell me Logan and Elena were waiting outside?" she demanded. "Oh, right. Logan and Elena are here," I replied, refocusing on my show. "Seriously, must you act so immaturely?" Sophie exclaimed, leaning towards me. I sidestepped, leaving her to kiss the empty air. "We'll discuss this when I return," Sophie stated. "No, we won't," I responded. After watching my sitcom and enjoying a satisfying meal, I finished my tasks by painting the front door a pale yellow. It complemented the house's red brick exterior beautifully. I chuckled when our cat Samson meowed from the garage. "I'll let you out once the paint dries, buddy," I assured the cat. Upstairs, I canceled our shared credit cards. I wasn't aware of any cards Sophie had separately, and I had no intention of supporting her indiscretions or her cousin's lavish lifestyle. I accessed Sophie's personal bank account and withdrew half the balance. Similarly, I withdrew half from our joint account, from which I was the sole contributor. Using the bank's website, I opened a new account solely in my name and transferred the withdrawn funds there. Online services facilitated the removal of my name from utilities and cable TV. I shrugged off an email from Preston Vale Power and light stating the cancellation would occur at the billing cycle's end. Doesn't matter, I commented to the screen. Time for Sloan's Pizza, I thought as my stomach rumbled. Sophie never let me eat there. Maybe you'll drop dead from a heart attack, I mused. I ordered pizza and a draft beer. I flirted with the waitress, even though she was significantly overweight. She smiled, tapping my wedding ring with her long nail. I glanced at the ring, my mood souring. I thanked her, left a tip, and departed. After considerable effort, I removed the ring, placing it in the console cup holder. Forever love, huh, Sophie? I mused aloud. Guess that ended today. My truck signaled low fuel. At the gas station, I initially chose $10 worth, but decided to fill the tank completely. Filling 22 gallons sure takes time, I commented, as the pump continued to gurgle. I visited a nearby convenience store and found Budweiser beer. Walking past another set of refrigerators, I noticed containers of ice cream. I picked up a pint of strawberry ice cream and brought both items to the counter. Shelley was no longer working there. She had gotten married, much to the disappointment of me and many other men who frequented that gas station, just to see her behind the counter. However, Shannon Carlisle, a petite brunette now working there, was almost as attractive as Shelley. I grinned as Shannon stepped onto a milk crate she had placed by the cash register. Her eyes widened momentarily, then she burst into hearty laughter, brightening her already pretty face. From then on, she affectionately referred to me as Shorty. "Your wife out of town, Shorty?" Shannon inquired, observing my purchases. "My wife is gone for good," I replied. Shannon glanced at my left hand, then met my eyes. After studying my face briefly, she asked, "So where are you taking me on our first date?" "Shannon, as lovely as you are, why would you want to date an old guy like me?" I questioned. Sophie's 40th birthday was on Tuesday. On Wednesday, our daughter Vivian called. "Rivers's renovation and remodeling, Ethan speaking," I answered. "Dad, yesterday was Mom's birthday," Vivian informed me. "Yes, so?" I responded, scratching my stubbled face. "Why didn't you call her?" Vivian pressed. "I didn't want to," I sighed. "I just didn't, kiddo." "Why?" Vivian persisted. "You'll understand soon," I replied. "Your mother believes that now that she's 40, she should be with other men." "What?" Vivian exclaimed. "What do they teach you in school?" I retorted. "She's married. Married women don't date other men." "That's so old-fashioned," Vivian laughed. "Goodbye, Vivian," I said, ending the call. 10 minutes later, Sophie's number lit up my phone. Despite recognizing it, I answered, "Rivers Renovation and Remodeling." "Hi, Ethan," Sophie greeted tersely. "So how's life at 40? I quipped, trying to maintain a light tone. "This isn't a joke, Ethan," Sophie snapped back. "I agree, it's not funny," I replied. "And you're welcome for canceling the credit cards." "Anything else?" I asked, not really interested. "My birthday was yesterday," Sophie pointed out. "Why didn't you call?" "I didn't want this," I replied bluntly. "Maybe whoever you're with would have wished you," I suggested. "Grow up, Ethan," Sophie retorted. "Really, Sophie? Adults honor their commitments and respect their vows," I shot back. "Who's Isabella?" Sophie demanded. "Isabella? She married Luke Marquette, the bank manager," I explained. "She's with Gold Standard Real Estate now. She's found a potential buyer for our house." "We aren't selling the house, Ethan," Sophie exclaimed. "Can you really afford to be surprised? We have to settle the second mortgage. Isabella said we might need to bring cash to clear that mortgage," I replied. "We're not selling the house," Sophie reiterated, louder this time. "I've already stored all your furniture at the EZ warehouse on Independence Road, next to the Chevrolet place, Unit 212. Your dad has the key," I informed her. "Oh Lord, Ethan, I need to get home." Sophie's voice quivered with distress. "Your dad couldn't fetch our cat Samson, so I took him to Spencer's," I continued casually. "Spencer? Oh God, Spencer has those Dobermans," Sophie exclaimed, panic setting in. "Ah, shoot, I didn't think about that," I chuckled. "No wonder he was so eager to adopt the cat." Ignoring her pleas, I ended the call, leaving the phone on the kitchen counter, and headed upstairs to surf the internet. The phone rang again, but I ignored it. "Maybe your mom's new boyfriend can cover his final school year," I muttered. "Why don't you check for a scholarship for students with a GPA of 2.1? With that attitude, it's tough to expect your dad to finance your education." After shutting down the computer, I shaved off 3 days of stubble, took a hot shower, and dressed in jeans and a t-shirt. My final act was to discard my cell phone in the trash and wheel the trash can to the curb. "Going to miss you, Ethan," Voltaire, my neighbor, greeted me on the street. "Voltaire, you won't," I laughed, shaking his hand. "The most we ever spoke was when you complained about Vivian's boys blasting their music." Voltaire said to me, "Ah man, you were the perfect neighbor. Never borrowed stuff, never asked me to feed your cat or collect your mail during vacations. I bet the next folks will be all over me." "You brought it on yourself being so friendly," I remarked. Sophie tried to unlock the front door, but her key didn't fit. She pulled out her phone and dialed the number for Gold Standard Real Estate listed on the sign, staring at it in disbelief. Her phone was fully charged but seemed faulty. Elena lent her cell while Logan checked the windows and doors. Sophie cursed under her breath when the call connected. "Gold Standard Real Estate, Isabella Marquette speaking," Isabella greeted cheerfully. "This is Sophie Harrington," Sophie snapped. "My key doesn't work at my house." "Ah, Harrington's ex?" Isabella chirped. "Ex?" Sophie retorted. "I need to sign some paperwork." "Guess what? I have clients interested in your home," Isabella continued. "It's not for sale," Sophie exclaimed. "So, are you buying out Mr. Harrington?" Isabella probed. "The Ellingtons might be disappointed. They liked the house too." Sophie reiterated that the house wasn't for sale and called me. "You idiot," she muttered as I answered. "Rivers Renovations and Remodeling." "Can we drop you somewhere?" Logan interrupted impatiently. "My cat," Sophie remembered, squeezing back into the car. "Hey," Spencer answered. "It's me," Sophie said. "Did Ethan give Samson to you?" "With Poppy, Olive, and Blue around, they'd shred that cat," Spencer snapped. "No, Dad has him. You need to get him. Dad's physical therapist is allergic. Ethan's disappearance almost bankrupted us. I secured a federal loan but had to let Fromont take it because none of us can lay ceramic tile." "Who else are you calling?" Elena snapped as Sophie dialed her dad's number. "Don't you have unlimited minutes?" Sophie asked. "Nope, 1000 monthly. Mr. Football used most," Elena replied. "Last call," Sophie assured. Ben angrily agreed to let her come over. Logan drove them to Ben's house. Elena and Sophie hugged and Sophie headed inside. "How was it?" Logan asked Elena as she got in the car. "Disastrous," Elena sighed. "Who'd want her, not with you around?" Logan joked, watching Sophie enter. "Any money from her?" Elena inquired. "Almost," Logan said, pulling out. "Ethan's such a pain." "Can you hear me?" Elena sounded frustrated. "He canceled her credit cards." "She used her debit," Logan explained. "ATMs are everywhere." "She got about $10, Logan muttered. "We need gas." "With ATMs and the internet, she's fine," Logan reasoned. "Unless your football-obsessed hubby isn't hogging minutes," Elena retorted. "Here's $20, Logan handed Elena. "She went online." "What's the connection to ATMs?" Logan inquired as he steered into the gas station. Sophie noticed Ethan covered half her bill. "Just grab $10, all right? We still have the electricity bill to cover unless you've settled it already," Elena suggested. Logan nodded and entered the convenience store. Elena watched as he glanced at the beer cooler, then honked the car horn. Logan shot her a disapproving look through the store's window, but proceeded to the counter. I had just gone to get one can, or so Logan claimed when he got back. "Just one?" Elena shot back. "When's the last time you settled for just one can?" Logan mumbled something about a petite lady, wondering why she had such a prominent chest. "She looks bigger because she's small," Elena corrected, rolling her eyes. "Let's just get the gas," Logan urged, growing impatient. "Fine," Elena relented, still fuming. Meanwhile, Sophie endured her father's angry rant. Since his stroke, Ben's language had become increasingly harsh, and he didn't hold back from using cruel and hurtful words to describe people. "When was the last time you looked in the mirror?" Ben sneered. "You look like a fat pig with a face carved by an ice pick." "Dad!" Sophie cried, deeply hurt. "So what if I'm turning 40? Women turn 40 every day," Ben grumbled. "But not all of them betray their family at 40. He pointed to legal documents scattered on the coffee table. Just then, Samson walked into the room. "You'll need a lawyer, and I need to clean the cat litter box," Ben snapped. "Good Lord, I don't know what that cat eats, but it stinks to high heaven," he muttered under his breath. "You're back in your old room," Ben said coldly. "I hope betraying us was worth it. Do you hear me? I hope it was. 40 years old and still making foolish choices." Later that night, lying in her childhood bed, Sophie gazed at the wallpaper she and her mother had chosen when she was 8. Samson remained still as Sophie switched off the light, staring into the darkness. The week of her 40th birthday had started on a high note. The flight to Vegas was smooth, and Sophie remembered watching the city lights come to life below them. After checking into their hotel, Sophie and Elena tried their luck at the roulette table before deciding to have dinner. Sophie felt humiliated when the waiter informed her that her credit card was declined. The second card met the same fate. The manager returned with her third card and a stern expression. Thankfully, her debit card went through, but when she checked her bank account, she discovered that her balance had been halved. Both she and Elena blamed Ethan Harrington, feeling he had overstepped his bounds. "Come on, Elena," Elena urged. "We're in Vegas. We can't let this setback spoil our fun, right?" However, watching Elena lose $300 at the blackjack table dimmed the evening's excitement a bit. "That was my $300, Elena muttered. Sophie struck up a conversation with a handsome young man at a bar, 25-year-old David Daltrey, and they headed to her room. It was a brief encounter, just 4 minutes. "Sophie," Elena quipped, "you sure know how to pick 'em." Sophie caught David trying to snatch her wallet from her purse. Elena lamented her $100 daily limit, and Lady Luck wasn't on her side this trip. Sophie joked Elena's $100 seemed to vanish as soon as she left the hotel room. On Tuesday evening, her birthday, Sophie approached another young man. He smirked and said, "Lady, if I wanted to be close to a 300-pound woman, I'd stay home with my wife." He then suggested a blind convention nearby, mocking her appearance. Feeling hurt, Sophie took the elevator to their room. Seeing the "Do Not Disturb" sign, she groaned and spent hours in the lobby coffee shop. Eventually, she messaged Elena about returning home. Back in her room after a shower, Sophie put on hot lingerie and lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. She noticed Ethan hadn't called or texted for her birthday. Vivian didn't call either, but she did send a birthday text. Checking her phone, Sophie felt the sting of her husband's neglect. Still, she appreciated the birthday wishes from Spencer, Lucas, and Adrian. The next morning, Elena grumbled about the budget, hinting that she had paid for their flight and hotel. By Saturday, Sophie was contemplating ending her relationship with Elena due to her constant complaints. But with Elena holding their airline tickets, Sophie stayed quiet. Now in her childhood room, Sophie sighed deeply. Her birthday month had been far from a celebration. Grant Delaney, recommended by Julian Mercer from the Prestonvale Public Library, reviewed the papers from Lila Everhart's office. He then delivered a blunt assessment. "He gets half, you get half. The house must be sold, and the profits split evenly. Expenses are shared. Despite his unemployment, he isn't seeking child support," Grant stated. "But I don't want a divorce," Sophie protested. "I don't want to lose my home. I don't want to miss Harrington." "It doesn't change the facts," Grant responded. "One person wants a divorce, and that can lead to it." "Can we get a consultation?" Sophie asked. "We can request one," Grant confirmed, and Sophie smiled. "I'll call Lila's office." Listening to Grant, Sophie glanced at his book titles, hearing mostly uh-huh and hmm from him. "All right, Mrs. Harrington, here's the issue," Grant stated, setting his phone on the table. "I'm paying you to avoid issues," Sophie responded, gripping her purse tightly. "Miss Everhart doesn't know where her client is. Your husband settled her fee and left. She only has his email address," Grant relayed. "Is that essential?" "It's her sole means to reach him. And no, she won't disclose the email. It's protected by attorney-client privilege," Grant clarified. "Oh," Sophie murmured, settling back in her chair. "Ethan informed Miss Everhart that henceforth your daughter will cover her tuition and dorm costs," Grant added. "He mentioned something about starting new traditions. Do you grasp what he's implying?" "No, but I suspect Vivian might." Sophie bypassed her 41st birthday, dressing for work and leaving her room. She remained absorbed, hands limp on her lap, when her daughter planted a kiss on her cheek. "Anything you need before I head out?" I asked Sophie. "No," Benjamin grumbled. "All right, I'll be leaving then. Take care of Samson, okay?" Sophie tried to keep her voice cheerful. "Everything's fine. My 2 main guys will be good, got it?" Benjamin replied, his words mixed with grunts and barks. Sophie commuted to work, following her usual route from her dad's place to the library. Her phone buzzed, but she waited until she parked to check it. "Happy birthday" flashed on her screen. Thanks, Vivian, Sophie responded flatly. Thrilled for my birthday, just brimming with joy, she thought sarcastically, but she still acknowledged Vivian's greeting. Despite losing 25 pounds since turning 40, Sophie felt unnoticed and overlooked, especially after Ethan left. Soon after Ethan's departure, she realized the true nature of Elena and Logan's open marriage. Financial struggles bound them together in a loveless existence, sharing a trailer as mere roommates without affection. Sophie missed Ethan's warmth and kisses, especially after cooking him a meal. However, when she announced her solo trip to Vegas for her 40th birthday, Ethan's affection faded, ending their last encounter with him dodging her kiss. About an hour after Vivian's text, Sophie's phone rang with a message from her boss, questioning her tardiness. She got out of her car feeling dazed and walked toward the rear entrance of her workplace. Vivian received a thank you text from her mom for the birthday wishes, followed by a picture of a brown-haired little girl. Annette Barbara Harrington, weighing 6 pounds 4 ounces and measuring 17 inches, the text read. Vivian found it ironic that her mom and younger sister shared a birthday. She doubted her mom would see the humor in it or if her dad even remembered. Shannon called Ethan's office. We offer carpets, tiles, hardwoods, and laminate flooring, Ethan answered the phone. Hey, Shorty, a voice teased on the line. Pardon me? Ethan Harrington said to a couple choosing hardwood floor colors. He signaled Bobby to assist them and picked up the call. The man nodded and approached the couple. Ethan moved to the wall phone and answered the blinking line, scanning the trading floor as he listened attentively. He awaited news from Augustus Hawk about securing an exclusive flooring contract for the developer's projects. Listening, Shorty, Ethan greeted. Guess what, Mr. Shorty? Shannon's voice teased. Looks like you and your 7 inches are making me a mom again. Again? Really? Ethan exclaimed in surprise. Our daughter is still in diapers and we're expecting another? Shannon giggled on the other end. Where are you? Ethan asked. Just left Dr. Pritz, Shannon replied. Hurry over, Ethan urged. We're celebrating at the Stone Grill. All this talk about my figure is why we're in this situation, Shannon chuckled, pushing daughter's stroller from Alliance Square Medical Center into the Texas heat. At 48, she brushed her hair back and scanned her surroundings, always cautious due to her height. She faced the sun and smiled. When Ethan told Shannon he was leaving the gas station, she questioned his destination. Why? He asked. So I can forward my last paycheck, Shannon quipped, stepping off her milk crate. Heading somewhere warm. I'm already snowed in, Shannon. What's a stunning girl like you doing with an old guy like me? Ethan teased. Ready to banter back, Shannon replied. About 7 inches, closing her eyes. What color are my eyes? She asked. Dark brown, Ethan answered. I have a dimple on which side? She queried, opening her eyes. Left, he responded. And when you smile, your right front tooth peeks out slightly crooked. Shannon, I love you, Ethan added.